Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to Pinball Arcade. So let's think about this. Last time we did Champion Pub, did not like that. Before that was Cactus Canyon, didn't like that table. And before that was Starship Troopers. So I imagine Monster Bash is our last chance, and it has a high chance of coming out better than average as a table. Um, Lots of people do like Medieval Madness. I can't deny that. Maybe I think it's a little bit overly complicated. No Good Gophers is playable, but not particularly visually nice. So we had a decent collection of tables in the previous 8 selection, but we only had 3 here, so odds were somewhat possible that we would end up with only 1 table or even 0 tables that we actually like. So this is 1998. So 1999, as far as Pinball Arcade's curation, is the point where pinball died. Like, no tables have been curated from that year at all. But we can certainly see that, let's see, if we were going back, I would say here with Safecracker was a lot of gimmicks and probably delayed development. And Whodunit, even this far back, was probably some issues. But honestly, I would say you might want to go back as far as, say, around Teed Off. Once the TV and movie licenses with the Twilight Zone kind of ended, and then you were down to Rescue 911. That's when the beginning of the end started happening. Once they started licensing movies like Frankenstein and brands like No Fear, we got some interesting tables in the peak there, but other companies clearly had other tables that were rushed. It is definitely more than likely that even a single company like Bally or Williams had 3 or 4 games in development at the same time. Let's hop into here. This is a Williams table. Monster Bash is, I suppose, a competitor to the Elvira games, the first 2, which are limited, emulated in this game. The newest one is not so much, and it generally has that same idea. And in a lot of ways, the radio hit of Monster Bash did way, way more for the Universal Monster movies than, well, Universal Studios has been able to do anything with them after that. They have been constantly, even in 2021, trying to reboot or license those characters, and they just can't get society to accept them as anything but archaic, uninteresting characters. And I don't know what you really could do to fix that. Like, the only Mummy movie that has been good was the Brendan Fraser Mummy trilogy, which does not look anything like the Mummy from Universal Monsters. The last vampire movie to be interesting was probably Twilight, which that says quite a lot. And Frankenstein movies, like that was the Bride of Frankenstein, Mel Brooks movie that might have been interesting. Swamp Man, there hasn't been a good Swamp Man story in a long time. Part of that also comes down to the Swamp Thing could easily just be replaced with any alien or any monster. So The Thing as a movie replaces Swamp Thing easily, and Aliens or a xenomorph from the Alien series easily replaces Swamp Thing. I guess American Werewolf in London and Teen Wolf also took werewolves in a different direction. There's just like not really anything you can do with any of these monsters. And honestly, I imagine Universal Studios, had they not tried to compete with Disney and build a amusement park, would have done a lot better to spread their money around and create new, more interesting IP instead of holding on to a history that just doesn't have a chance of really succeeding. The only thing I would say Universal Monsters have succeeded at is becoming so commoditized that it's what kids wear on Halloween, and nobody's really afraid of them, and nobody's really interested in them. Uh, you couldn't write a Dracula 2, for instance, and once you've hit that point where you can't write a Dracula 2, you might as well just put Dracula in the public domain because it's of no real value to you. Let's read this. Monster Bash 1998 was designed by George Gomez. The goal of the table is to get all 6 of the most iconic Universal Studio monsters to form a band the likes of has never been seen. If you dig out the mummy, he'll dust himself off and plug in the bass. Dracula will fly out of his coffin, dying to sink his teeth into a mean guitar riff. The creature from the Black Lagoon will crank up on his sax. Frankenstein will jump off his slab and jam on the keyboard. And the Bride of Frankenstein will start to sing all about her ball and chain. And the Wolfman will give you a howling drumbeat. With the help of the Phantom Flip autoplay feature, you can let go of the flippers and watch the game complete your shots. Interesting idea. We've seen the Addams Family kind of had something like that too, but it wasn't anything that felt really practical. 3,361 units of this table were produced, a very high number compared to some of the low numbers we've seen previously. There is definitely an argument here. No pro version, so we'll just have to look at the table. Unfortunately, this must be one of those first generation tables they emulated. That if you were going to reskin and remaster this, it would just be Scooby-Doo. And that is about the level of where the Universal monsters are, is that Scooby-Doo's just going to unmask them. If you tried to go dark and hardcore with it, maybe you could. I mean, I want to think maybe you could do a Supernatural tie-in, but I don't think that would really work. For as crazy as Supernatural is, going on like 15 seasons, I still don't think you would just use that as a theme to do the Universal monsters. A Supernatural pinball table in itself would be interesting, but you wouldn't bring in Frankenstein and the Wolfman and all of that. Scooby-Doo is about the only thing that would make sense. Or you just completely 1-for-1 remaster and sell the old game, which is what people seem to be doing somewhat. It's just remaking the old games. And I guess if this table plays well, that might work. Seems like there is a very wide scoop on the left for the Black Lagoon with a sinkhole behind it. And then to the right of that seems to be a secondary sinkhole. There seems to be lights for each character and lights for each musical instrument, which seems like there might be 10 missions in total, like an A mission and a B mission. Let's see. To the right of the second, what looks like a sinkhole, but might be just a loop around, is another ramp that I can't see where it goes, but it might be a spin or two. To the right of that is 2 standing targets for Frankenstein. Slightly off center is a center shot to a spinner, and I can't see where that goes either. And if you hit it from a different angle, there's a standing target, and it seems like you can bounce off the spinning target and hit the 3 perfect triangle formation pop-up bumpers. It seems like there's a top lane up there with some spelling of letters. There's a scoop to the right of that, and to the right of that is another ramp. To the right of that is I think a standing target. Maybe? No, I don't know what's under the coffin. There might be a sinkhole there, there might be not. To the right of that is two standing targets. I kind of like the design of this table and the fact that it seems like there's only 2 standing targets in 2 different places. So there's only like 5 on the table I'm seeing in total, which is nice. I don't like the idea of having the plastic art on both sides of the slingshot and the divider between the in lane and the out lane. I haven't liked that on any of the tables. There's a lot of toys on this table, decent number of ramps, a lot of lights. We'll have to definitely keep an eye out for the music, or an ear out for the music too, because if the music's good, yay. If the music's bad, then it's not going to be particularly motivating to continue to play Monster Bash if it comes off cheesy. And that is the risk certainly you run into, is that the music may come out cheesy. It looks like the Wolfman only shows up as a flat 2D image, whereas every other character seems to seems to have a toy of some sort. And it seems like the Black Lagoon creature is doing that under the table hologram from the other pinball table, creature from the Black Lagoon. The standard goals is to light Phantom Flip, so it doesn't just play automatically, you have to light it. Score an instrument bonus, activate Monster Mosh Pit. Earn an extra ball, activate Monster Bash. Yep. There is just that high risk here of the music not standing the test of time. So that's what I would focus on as we play.
Welcome to the Monster Bash.
Right. This is another one of the launcher tables. So you have to hit the jets to dig out the mummy. That center lane shot just loops back to the left loop. Spelling the letters in the background seems to shift the phases of the moon.
I hope this monster is as stunning as you, Doctor.
Seems like we are going all over the place.
That sarcophagus sucked.
So we've started Mummy Mayhem, which I suspect is a hurry-up mode. Thought it might be a multiball. So far the music sounds fine. I'm noticing a shot here that seems to kind of bounce off. Things might be a little bit to the left or right, so I might have to just get used to shooting the targets. Oh, that drained almost directly down the middle. The bonus multiplier is held. And there's just like basically no skill shot, it's just choose the right lane on the lane change. There's a bright light to the right of the table. I don't think I like that. It just seems particularly blue. There, we've started the Phantom Flip.
Come on, friend of mine in the bar.
Like, how can I trust the Phantom Flip to actually work? It would have to only work if you hit the in-lane switch. Because there's no way they have a sensitive enough measurement to recognize a vibration on a flipper. See, even here, they realize it's just a joke. They're joke characters, whereas they were legitimate horror characters before, decades previous. Setting Frankenstein alive makes sense as far as multi-ball.
Double super jackpot! Hey Frank, you could use some asbestos underwear. Super jackpot!
I've earned an extra ball.
Jackpot!
I don't know if I'm supposed to be hitting him more or something else.
Double super jackpot! Super jackpot, baby!
La la. Whoops.
There, I've got an instrument bonus. And earned an extra ball again. This table seems a little too easy. And here we have Dracula attack.
Form the Mosh Pit!
Activate the monster Mosh Pit.
Come on, stage dive tonight!
So I started like 2 modes at the same time. Is it the same smack sound that... Yeah, it is. Feels like it should have been a different sound for Dracula than Frankenstein, but whatever. And he does seem to be somewhat impact sensitive, because you can seem to hit him from behind, where the boxing game that we just played, you absolutely could not hit the guy from behind. And see, I did something here to increase the number of balls, and now we are getting even more balls, so we're up to like 4. Which I imagine they're not gonna shoot me more than 5 balls on the screen, maybe 6. If anything, this, even for a first generation emulation, I guess highlights that they can, with the emulation, have 6 balls on the table at the same time. So is it just that Apollo's 13 ball multi-ball pushes it too far? Or could Pinball Arcade really emulate Apollo 13 if it wanted to? It just wasn't an interesting enough table for them to get the license for, or maybe they just couldn't get the license for it. 25 times in-ball bonus, with the bonus being held. I don't think I particularly like the idea of double jets and lightning jets. Like, the idea of lighting a jet and it giving a higher score
Does anybody have some moisturizer?
is nice, but it's so old-fashioned, and you just very rarely are trying to hit the jets for score anymore. It just doesn't really matter. I assume all these little plastic toys also were not ever sold as like action figures, so they, I imagine, would be fairly hard to maintain and replace.
I'm gonna be naked in a minute.
Yeah, some of those right lane shots are easy to hit a peg on, easy to miss a shot on, and it seems like they want you to either get some combo shots or just hit the ramps a bunch. And as we're kind of slowing down here, I'm just just trying to target the shots and not drain the ball. Then they're playing wedding music, which I suppose that's timeless, but it's a little weird too.
I am Count Dracula, and you're not. Ouch! Bit my lip.
It seems like the Creature from the Black Lagoon sinkhole is really just a mystery award of only like 3 awards that it gives you. This time we didn't start the monster mash. We probably should have had more elements like the Dracula on tables where a target was just moving left and right on a curve, so it trains players to seek out different shots and target different shots. That's nice how that peg knocked the ball down the center, that sinkhole there, the scoop, instead of just letting it fall down the exact center like it did then.
You're an awesome amphibian.
I think we have all of the characters, and we're missing 2 of the instruments. Now we just activated Monster Bash, which was the last standard goal.
Transylvania! Let's rock!
I kind of appreciate the idea of them making it work for the Monster Bash mode. I also feel like, I guess we're hitting the monsters. It's kind of nice that there's all kinds of different color lights on this table. Like there's a little bit of purple, a little bit of yellow, a little bit of green, a little bit of red. Like that's a heavy palette, certainly to target. Now, is there an actual goal here? Or are we just hitting things? Because it kind of seems like we're just hitting things. Unless we're trying to hit the mummy. And it's kind of nice to think that the entire music will just keep on playing as long as you keep the ball in play. 61 million. And that resets you now, so we're down to, I think, trying to collect each of the characters.
Nice shot, baby!
I may have the high school score already.
No, please, not the
At a certain level, I guess I can't really complain about something that almost certainly has to be more kid-focused and kid-friendly being easy.
Come on tour with us.
There's some lines of dialogue there that should have probably been voiced instead of making me look up at the screen.
My favorite.
There is certainly a point that, like, if you needed subtitles, if you were hard of hearing playing pinball, you're gonna have a lesser experience. Pinball never really would embrace subtitles because it would just be too expensive in their minds, and frankly you'd have to look up at the table almost constantly to see if somebody was saying something. The only thing you could do is have each call out and a lot more information play through a special headphone jack like they do on ATMs. And that's more for blind people than deaf people. Yeah, if you're completely deaf, then you basically need some kind of braille system or something. I don't even know what. Yep. So I got the high score in less than 26 minutes of playing. Nothing wrong with this table. It feels like it may not have anything much more to show us, though. Certainly, after that first game. Like, let's see. Score a Mosh Super Jackpot. Score a Triple Super Jackpot. Collect a Special. Activate Layman's Lament. And activate Monsters of Rock. So let's just see what these instructions are. Monster Mosh Pit is another great multi-ball mode. Shoot the Mosh Pit 6 times to light Monster Mosh Pit at the Concert Hall Scoop. Shoot the ball into the Concert Hall Scoop to activate the mode. Monster Mosh Pit starts with 2 balls, but 2 more can be added by shooting the Mosh Pit lane 2 more times. While the mode is activated, the Black Lagoon, left loop, left ramp, center ramp, and right loop all are lit for a jackpot. They score 750,000, but each shot through the Mosh Pit increases the value by 5,000, 10,000, or 15,000 points. The Mosh Pit jackpot can be increased to a maximum of 1.5 million points. Shooting the center ramp 10 times scores a super jackpot. Not the Mosh Pit one, though. And raises the Frankenstein spot targets. Shoot these targets 5 times to score another super jackpot. Scoring a second super jackpot lowers Frankenstein's spot targets. These 2 super jackpots can continue to be scored as long as Mosh Pit is activated. Let's see, is there anything more? So how do you get a triple jackpot? Frankenstein is the keyboard player for the band. He's one of the 6 monsters to be collected to light the Monster Bash at the Concert Hall Scoop. His keyboard is one of the 6 instruments that must be collected to light the Monsters of Rock at the Concert Hall Scoop. So getting all the characters is Monster Bash. Getting all of the instruments is Monsters of Rock. To collect his keyboard, complete Frankenstein multi-ball mode. If Frankenstein spot targets 7 times, each hit collects one of Frankenstein's body parts. That's a lot of LEDs. This increases the value, blah, 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 blah. Hit the center ramp to start the multi-ball. During this mode, the left loop, left ramp, Mosh Pit lane, right ramp, and right loop are lit for jackpots. Blah, blah, blah. Frankenstein is lit for a super jackpot during this mode. The value starts with that. Frankenstein can be lit for a double jackpot by scoring 2 regular jackpots before shooting him. And he can be lit for a super jackpot by scoring 5 regular jackpots before shooting him. Okay. That's kind of a crazy way to do it. Collecting 4 of the 6 monster instruments lights the special on the out lane. The special is almost always given on an out lane versus anything else. A special feature called Lyman's Lament to activate it by shooting a constant hall scoop 44 times during a single ball play. Activating this feature via the constant hall scoop increases the end of ball bonus multiplier by 25 times. Interesting. It makes every switch on the table at 25,000 points. I don't understand why you would have such a feature. During this time, different music plays, and the lead programmer of Monster Bash, Lyman Sheets Jr., provides commentary on the action. Interesting. If you do the left flipper 11 times, the right flipper 1 time, left 5 times, right 1, left flipper 6 times, right 1. Yeah. 11, 5, 6. Sounds like a ridiculously high number of flips you'd have to do without making a single mistake, I assume, while the ball is in play. I don't see a way you could do that. Monster of Rock is a 4-ball multi-ball that's activated by shooting the constant hall scoop when the Monster of Rock is lit. To light it, collect all 6 of the monster's instrument. Creatures from the Black Lagoon is collected by completing creature feature mode, which we haven't done. Bride of Frankenstein's microphone is collected by completing the ball and chain mode. We haven't done that, but we have done that one. I think we've done that one. We've done that one. And we've done that one. So you have to get really good at a lot of different shots to activate everything on this table, which is not unheard of. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. Yeah, so I can do it before the game happens, but
It's nice to see your back.
And then Les Lyman is also the Igor voice. I imagine I didn't activate it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1. I don't think I got it that time either.
I love a sharp dress play.
I think your odds are higher to actually get the concert hall scoop 44 times in a single ball.
Not bad for a corpse.
There's definitely something in the angles here that have some problems as far as the Frankenstein targets. Just straight down the middle shots. So we can throw in the default complaints. There seems to be not really a kickback. There's no center peg. The ball saver mode could also be activated for a second or two after hitting a Frankenstein shot. This definitely feels like one of those tables where a remake in complete table design would be worth it in the experiment. So I've activated ball and chain mode. And that's when the Here Comes the Bride song plays.
Yes, master. Get ready while I flip the switch.
So that's kind of a funny Frankenstein character, Dr. Frankenstein, they decided to make.
Jackpot!
Alright.
Double super jackpot!
So
Jackpot!
jackpot, jackpot.
Double super
We need
jackpot.
jackpot, and then jackpot. Then we have to hit him. So it's actually not about hitting him. I think I can hit him now. So as long as I don't let the ball drain, I should get a triple jackpot. No, I needed to have done 5 jackpots, didn't I? Not 3. So... fairly tough shot. Tables certainly are getting fairly crazy as far as the whole end of score, end of game ball bonus. That you're getting like 25 times multipliers. I kind of wish it was a bit more contained like the old tables, and you had to actually work to get to a 10 times multiplier at the end of the ball. That way you don't have these wild lucky games happening that have people have millions of score higher than any different player that played almost as well and just didn't get as lucky. There's always been that split between pinball players that wanted lucky random events happening and pro players that wanted determinable procedurally generated scoring and not have random stuff occur. And if you have multipliers on top of multipliers and it's really random or easy to get those multipliers, that doesn't feel particularly fair. Pinball is in itself a medium where it's hard to realize if it's unfair or not, because you rarely have two people playing side by side doing the exact same thing. But if they were doing the exact same thing and they recognized that there was some big differences in their scores, people probably would not want to play any more of that pinball table. Like, I mentioned that I was in a pinball tournament once, and when I was very young, and it was only at that point when looking at pros play and seeing how high their scores were getting that I realized just how divergent our games were, where I would have assumed that we were doing just about the same, ignorantly assumed we were doing about the same as far as skill and progress. And it totally was not the case. They were activating on Star Trek The Next Generation was the table that the tournament was on. They were activating all the missions and accomplishing all the missions over and over again in a single ball, whereas I was not even able to get all the missions done. There's also some weirdness with owning a pinball table in the fact that the pinball collectors that exist often own arcades also, and so their pinball collections, as they grow bigger and bigger, are only sustainable if they pretend to turn it into a business and let other people play their games. Where you can be rich and have 4 or 5 in the basement, when you start to have 10 or 20, you need a facility, and at some point you might as well just let other people play too. Also, wouldn't be surprised if you do own 10 or 20 pinball tables, you're then probably getting constantly berated by friends and family to play them, so you might as well make a business out of it because of that. This feels like it's MIDI music in the sense that it seems like different tracks of the audio comes in and out, and there is definitely some overlapping of audio tracks, so multiple sounds are playing on top of each other, which for 1998 would have been a level of technology that would have been somewhat expensive. There is something I've noticed on newer pinball tables too, the idea of having sprites and images pop up on other images on the LCD screens. That's kind of new too, because all these dot matrix screens, they queue up one animation and then they show it and then they move on to the next animation. There might be a break-in animation that just stops the old animation, but nothing plays on top of itself. And of course, how could you have video playing on top of itself when it's just a dot matrix? It would look terrible. But color LCD stops that from being an issue.
Come on, kid, come on.
Yeah, I still feel like Creature from the Black Lagoon is a terrible shot on this, and that they're just not using him well. So did they need Creature from the Black Lagoon and the Bride of Frankenstein, or could they have lost him? It doesn't even really make the most sense that he's playing a saxophone. He's the odd man out even in the band. This is like a rock band, and they have a bass and a guitar and drums and a microphone, vocals. So sax would make sense more in a jazz band. So it feels like there should be a solo that plays during the song to justify that.
Mesmerize you with my semicircular movement.
And if they got rid of
Those are my Bruno Marleys.
if they got rid of the Creature from the Black Lagoon, and they would have had 5 instruments and 5 modes, which would make the table a little bit easier. Not that the table needs to be any easier. Arguably, you might throw in another character. What you don't have here, noticeably, is you don't have the Invisible Man, which you would think that the auto shots on the phantom shots, which I've not seen that actually activate, so I should experiment with that. The Invisible Man would make more sense. You don't have a Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde character. If you were going to make a spiritual successor to this game, that would be what you would do, is try to build up a group of competitive characters, but it would have to be like 5 characters.
No, please, not the moon.
And it couldn't just be all female equivalents of the male characters. You could certainly bring in a lady vampire, that works, but a lady wolf woman
Love that minty
doesn't
formaldehyde
quite make
flavor.
the same sense. You maybe bring in like a scarecrow character, or you bring in monsters from other realms. You bring in a djinn, Debek, if that's how you say it, and a golem. Is what I mean. Yeah, bring in a golem to replace Frankenstein. Bring in a djinn to replace the bride of Frankenstein, maybe. The Invisible Man. Sure. Mr. Hyde. You just bring in an evil human. Jack the Ripper would be a good person. Baba Yaga would be a good move.
It's hard to find good help these days.
One more hit and we'll have freed the mummy.
Good evening. Let's boogie.
And I suppose what you would do if you were going to re-release this is you'd just get the license for Hotel Transylvania and use that. Yeah. Yeah, I think that would work fairly well. It's just to bring out the characters from Hotel Transylvania, which are kind of the next generation kids of the Universal monsters. And I think that would be more kid-friendly even than Scooby-Doo, because even Scooby-Doo at this point would just be nostalgia for an older generation. Even Hotel Transylvania is probably 4 or 5 years old as of now. You can bring in like leprechauns and fairies. So the question to ask is, how much time can I possibly have my fingers off the flippers?
Shoot again.
That's certainly a challenge that we wouldn't have ever done on any other game, to try and activate a phantom shot mode. But yeah, all I'm feeling is that you probably have to hit the in-lane switches once it's lit, and it probably does one flip from the in-lane switch. I can't imagine it doing anything else, otherwise it would just go into a random mode of shooting angles and just kind of doing this. And there is something there that a computer could probably do as far as knowing different times to hit different shots to get different angles, so it wouldn't be so much just a consistent up and down motion, but it'd be closer to something like that over and over and over and over again. So I think we can do more loops if we want to, but I'm not sure there's any reason to do that.
Whoa, is that ball silver? Play with us.
See, it seems like they're just constantly trying to convince the creature from the Black Lagoon to join the band. And the Wolfman sounds a lot like Wolfman Jack, an old radio station guy. Or kind of like a jazz singer. Which is funny because they're doing rock, and what rock means in 1988 or 98 is very different than what it would mean in 2021. So you'd almost certainly have to update the audio or just let it ride as being old music.
In my day, we didn't have jackpots.
My waterlogged friend.
It would probably have been cool. It finally started Creature Feature. If they had gone with some other genres, but almost certainly you would expect them to do a Monsters of Country next instead of doing like a Monsters of Rap or Monsters of Jazz or anything along that line.
This puts a new twist on things, doesn't it? I'm too old for this. Whoa!
You go, kiddo.
Specials lit. So let's try to drain out these outlaying if we have to drain out.
He's so cute
I
and
think
slimy.
that finishes the Creature Feature. Nope, it wants me to hit the Black Lagoon.
Amphibians rule.
Okay, that was all of the instruments except for the ball and chain mode lit.
Ladies and gentlemen,
I think.
live from Transylvania Square Garden,
And we're starting the Monster Bash mode.
Monsters of Rock! Hello, Transylvania! Let's rock!
It almost feels like the Monster Bash mode should let you very easily unlock the Monsters of Rock mode. And then you got the clock. I don't know what the deal with the clock sound effects are though, because there's no clock on this table. And it sounds like there's at least 2 or 3 vocalists singing, which seems a little off if it was all going to be about the Bride of Frankenstein. I think I did just get the special, which that's a great way to get the special, is in the middle of the multi-ball.
That's right, my brother.
So we have still the
Shoot the game!
ball and chain mode, which means we have to hit the ramp on the right. Phantom flipper is lipped. Right.
He's got zippers all over his face.
So there's ball and chain mode.
That didn't hurt, did it?
And see, in the setup for the Monster Bash, I didn't see Herm shown. So does that mean you get a different launch for the Monster Bash mode, depending on at what instruments you had already collected? So you can have a better Monster Bash mode. Which means if I can keep this game going,
You don't understand.
I may get a Monsters of Rock and a Monster Bash mode that's better.
I'm starting to itch. I'm getting
But these modes also do feel a little bit weird in the sense that they seem to kind of go on until you've succeeded. Which is a little different.
Shoot again.
Because that does certainly imply that then you have to actually play particularly well to get the monsters of rock mode. And that very well may be the case.
I love the woods, man. All those trees.
I love the woods, all those trees. Is that supposed to be that he's a weed fiend? Or is that supposed to mean something else? That he's a dog? I guess it's probably half weed fiend, half dog reference. This table does have that stayability, that desire to play one more game, but we are into the wizard mode level where I think I would have to get really lucky to be able to legitimately do everything. But I could imagine I could do it in less than 5 hours of playing. It's like we're getting very high scores, at least for these local leaderboards. We're getting fairly close to our goal, which we've seen that on some other tables too, where you always get very close but not quite there. Theater Magic is also at that same level, and that's a good level to be at because it doesn't mean it means you won't get too bored with the game immediately, but you're not going to get too frustrated with it and rage quit when in the first hour, which some of these tables are definitely more rage quit worthy. I suppose it is also worth mentioning that it is a very different scenario to have paid $10 or $20 for a collection of 4 emulated pinball tables that you can play forever, than to be in an arcade and actually have to pump in $1 or 75 cents or 50 cents to play a single game. Like, it sucks to have to actually put money into an arcade machine and play. It's not a good feeling, particularly when you know you can have a bad game and it could be done in a few minutes, very less likely you're going to have a good game. There is something to the way old arcades were also set, in that because it wasn't just your game to play, people would eventually start lining up behind you if you were playing really well, and they would either want to mess with you and distract you, or they would just actually want to admire your gameplay and they distract you on accident, or they just want to play themselves, and so sharing sucks too. I mean, at the base of it, sharing is good, but in reality, anytime you have to share, it's not as fun as owning your own. Of course, nowadays, most arcades, that wouldn't really be a problem. Like, not really. It also kind of sucks as you get older and are adult and there's a kid that wants to play, is that if you're a decent person, you want to encourage the kid and let the kid play, and so you have to be the nice guy when maybe you would want to just focus on your own play, your own practice. There's also no way you're going to convince a kid that you have a tighter schedule than they do, when they have bedtimes and school curfews, and while you may be working 60 weeks at some job and you have just an hour off at an arcade,
Super jackpot!
no kid's gonna hear that message.
Super jackpot, baby!
See, I wonder if that would have been a phantom shot. I kind of felt like it might have been. But there's really not a good indication that the phantom shot is even lit. I guess it's that green light above the inline drains. Alright, so next time I see that lit, I will let the ball shoot itself. There we go. It does it. Okay.
I'm scared of the moon.
So it does work, and it will give you a perfect shot, seemingly
I just love that
in the
mixing
center
aldehyde
shot.
flavor. La la.
The problem there is you kind of have this lane changing feature, which seems to let you switch where which one is lit.
I'm spinning here.
So yeah,
Look at those pyramids.
if I hit the flipper and the ball happens to go on the in lane of the other flipper of the other direction, it won't trigger. So you basically have to see it coming to use that shot.
Come play with us!
And it's not like there's really a lot of times in which this fan layout would have the ball going towards the in lane anyways. So the phantom shot feature
Let's go
is really just a gimmick that I don't think this table needs.
Extra ball!
I'm trying extremely hard to not let the ball drain.
You hold your breath for so long. You're an awesome amphibian.
Alright, so that time it hit Frankenstein and did it in a relatively safe manner. Bit of a dirty joke there, asking him how does he hold his breath for so long while in a jacuzzi. At least you can certainly take it as a dirty joke.
We gotta do this quick, baby.
Letting the phantom shot happen
Shoot again!
doesn't seem to give you really any reward other than just guaranteed shots, which arguably, once you've even become a mediocre pinball player, it is way more valuable to shoot the shots yourself in practice and get better than it is to take your fingers off the flippers and let someone else control it. Now this is something I would have liked to see as a feature just in general for pinball tables, is I would have liked to see them script out entire demo games playing where it was flipping the ball around and it knew exactly where the ball was going to land.
Ew, where'd you dig him up?
And then you probably would artificially fake it so that you would put a demo where the ball drained very quickly and the computer would play particularly badly. So it looks easier. No, I guess you'd artificially fake it so it would look easier and have the computer play very well, not badly. Yeah, that would make a lot more sense.
Nasty stuff.
That there is a problem with DirectX 11's version of Pinball Arcade again, in that some of these lights are harder to see than they should be, whether something's lit or not. course, if you were going to program a game to basically play itself in a demo mode on pinball, you would have to program it to basically do shots and loops that never hit any pop-up bumper or any, which is fairly easy to do, but anything that's like particularly random would not work. It would have to just be lanes and loops. I wouldn't be surprised if arcade owners also would hate and turn off any kind of attract mode, because it would wear out the table just that much more, and they probably would hate the idea of increasing how often they had to repair the flippers and the rubbers and all the other components on a pinball table just because it's playing itself. And that feels like something Stern today would do, is put out a attract mode specifically designed to make their products last less time. Fortunately, with the exception of maybe Stern now, from what I'm hearing about them, I don't have any real knowledge of how they treat their customers. Every other pinball table designer pretty much designed their tables to last as long as they possibly could, and that's why we have tables from the 50s and 60s. There's actually a prototype table that apparently only 2 ever existed, that has at least one of those prototype tables is still available and playable in one of the Las Vegas pinball museums, and it is a weird pinball table. On top of that, because it is extremely vertical, it has like 3 different play fields, and your only goal that they actually built, because it was not finished, was to get to the top or most play field. There's a light in the middle that says, that's blinking of, for Monsters of Rock. I don't know why you would want or need that extra light there. Okay. Keep on shooting. We still need creature feature and ball and chain mode. And see, I'm just playing now. Don't even really have a lot to say. This is probably a table that would work very well with LEDs. It's very colorful. Once again, jackpot, jackpot, jackpot. 5 jackpots before we hit him once. Which is practically impossible.
Double super jackpot!
What you probably want to do, and it's not my play style, is probably lock the ball and then hold it with one flipper on the left flipper. Just drop the ball that way. And then
Just a little off the top.
And then from that point flip only the right flippers for the jackpots.
You don't understand. I'll change.
And if you could hold 2 balls and drop them with the left flipper, that would be even better.
Come on, kid, come on. Extra ball is lit.
Which shot do I actually have to hit to get the extra ball, by the way? See, I didn't accomplish the ball and chain mode, and that's the problem, is that there's one shot there that I'm just not getting. It almost feels like it would be nice to have a progressive reward on the instrument modes, but between game and game. We've not seen that concept embraced again since the last time we saw it several years ago, in a year's earlier table. And the idea of a progressive scoring jackpot has been forgotten too. Anything progressive has been pretty much undone because it just wasn't a fair idea in pinball. Progressive only makes sense if you have a progressive jackpot for the number of games and credits that are in the table, and then once there are 0 credits in the table, you tell them you have 1 minute to put in more credits to maintain the progressive score, otherwise it resets. And that's fairly manipulative, sure, but at the very least that keeps it most likely amongst a group of friends or a single player and resets it for anyone else. But even in that scenario, that is just pay to win mechanics, because you could theoretically put $100 into a table, eventually win a progressive jackpot and get a higher score than an average player who only put 50 cents into a table. At a certain level, I kind of feel like they don't want people to be table hogs too. They don't mind you spending, I guess, 40 minutes to an hour on a table, but if you've been there for 3 or 4 hours, particularly if there's a line lining up behind you, that's
I've been in that darn thing
that's
for 3,000
something
years.
I think they don't want so much of. I wish we could look at the table closer.
Get off your feet and jump.
It's just a whole bunch of the same monsters. Frankensteins and Bride of Frankensteins and Wolfmen and vampires. I think we're supposed to be shooting up the center ramp, but most multi-balls, you kind of can just do whatever you want. Doesn't really feel like we're making big progress towards any goal in this mode. It just feels like we're getting kind of mini jackpots. I do have to applaud the idea here of having 4 pinballs and that representing a mosh pit, because that's a almost direct one-to-one comparison. It makes sense. So you would have to expect that every Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, Kiss pinball table, any music genre that's likely to have a mosh pit should have a mosh pit mode very similar to this. course, the problem with modes like this is they just kind of end your progress. So you're fatiguing your muscles. And playing this mode, getting some decent score, but not really accomplishing your full focus. Seems like you have to hit too many things to start the Phantom Flipper. You have to spell Phantom, which that feels like that should be automatically triggered when you just hit something once or twice.
Hello, Transylvania! Let's rock!
Yeah, the Mosh Pit mode and this mode both feel like they should help you make progress towards collecting the last bit of the musical instruments, but you kind of don't. Hitting any of the targets seems to give you 2 million. Maybe hitting that center lane spinner would increase that reward slightly. And you just kind of can do nothing until the balls start legitimately draining. Now is the time to be careful, because you don't want the balls to all drain at the same time.
The dog man is coming!
That just resets everything.
Take me for a walk! Walk!
I hope this monster is as stubby as you, Doctor.
Leave with them!
So once again, I think we're close to creature feature and trying to get the ball and chain mode activated.
I will not be your date for the concert.
And the random rewards know what missions you need to do.
Wrap those flippers around me, fish boy.
It would be ironic, I suppose, if the creature from the Black Lagoon became a ladies' man, because, like almost all of them, there is always that element of the monster grabbing the lady and running off with her. Wow, that was a loud thunk sound. Yeah. If you look at like the game Brutal Legend and how Jack Black and Double Fine really loved heavy metal and tried to make a video game around it, it would have been really cool if there was a Brutal Legend pinball table. There may have actually been one, but on the other hand, if you look at Brutal Legend, there was a level of stupidity in the design of that table, of that video game. It's not a pinball table, it's a video game. In that, instead of just being an action hack and slash game that you would expect it to be, it turned into a real-time strategy game halfway through, and people pretty much hated it. Interesting, we didn't collect a special. I could have sworn we did that. We also didn't activate Layman's Lament, and we didn't activate Monsters of Rock. And I think since no pro mode is available, I can't cheat it anyways. So it really would just be a case of trying to pull this off.
Welcome to the Monster Bash.
And this game in particular is just a little too long. So yeah, I'm not finding anything here to really hate. Just a little bit of a challenge, which is good, and universal monsters, which doesn't make the most amount of sense even in 1998 as far as a theme. The music did pass the test. It sounds fine. If you're going to remake it, you would probably improve the music and have more musical tracks. But you would be hard pressed to find a second group of rock monsters and then have like a battle of the bands, where then there would be like figurines on one stage on the far back left of the screen, and then a band on the far right of the table, far back right of the table. Like that would be a cool visual, but it'd be hard to make small enough figurines so that would work. I just had a thought. What about a Lego themed table? Yeah, that probably would work. I'm a big fan of Lego, particularly the expert sets. So you might be able to pull something out and have a theme table like that, but it also might look too kid centered for its own good. And arguably Lego does not, and Lego and pinball don't really mix, in that you're not really going to be building anything in a pinball game. It would be more likely that you would just have a bunch of mini figurines, and even those would take up a decent amount of space. That's the kind of table that would probably just be a homebrew table, and it would be much more likely that Lego would just make a pinball table set out of Legos than a Stern would make a Lego themed table out of Lego components, out of pinball components. I'm not even going to try to repeat what I just said, because I'll just mess it up again.
Yes, master. Get ready while I flip the switch.
Yeah, there's, I imagine, a whole collection of toys, like Transformers, G.I. Joe, He-Man, She-Ra, all of those themes would play well enough on the nostalgia to sell a couple thousand tables, which is all you kind of need to sell, or all you can expect to sell these days. Lego would probably be a fairly difficult one, actually, because Lego is a very non-violent toy, whereas violence themed pinball tables actually are easier to make, in my mind. I think I've gotten 5 jackpots. There we go, finally. Got one of the wizard goals.
Jackpot! Gil, come on, friend of mine in the vault.
Accidentally changed the ball skin again. Really wish that was more locked down.
You go, Gil. He's so cute and slimy.
So yeah, those 2 shots though I don't think are enough
again.
And the shoot again oddly resets the mode. So an extra ball is not the end-all solution as far as the safety.
Don't move.
A lot of the callouts here are Dracula making the callouts. You kind of rarely hear the Wolfman, and you never hear the creature from the Black Lagoon. I guess they didn't want to play another voice actor. I could complain certainly that there's only one female here, but I mean, if the Wolfman is supposed to be black, which I think is kind of the idea, and the Dracula is supposed to be European, you've got a decent amount of
Man, that sarcophagus
diversity
makes my
there.
butt ache.
There could be one more girl in the group, certainly, or even 3 girls to 3 guys. That might be an interesting idea, is if there was a instead of the Spice Girls, you had the Mice Girls that were like zombie characters, a girl band. And then you would have like scary mice, super scary mice, super duper scary mice, and that would be a funny Spice Girls parody. Of course, even making a joke about the Spice Girls in 2021 is old-fashioned, and people wouldn't get it. Yeah, this is definitely a table I just don't want to put down, though. And I have to say, for all Pinball Arcade's problems, there are enough tables to just sit back and enjoy them if you could actually purchase those good tables. The problem is, we'll have to go look, and we'll almost certainly realize that a lot of the good tables are no longer available for purchase, and you're left with a much worse selection. Just everything is lit up here. You kind of want to get a ball returned when you start a mode like that, because it's fairly highly likely that you're going to accidentally drain out the outlane 2 or 3 balls at the same time.
I'm a hairy dude in a canine mood.
That is something pinball in general just never fixed, is the idea of stopping the cheap ball outs. It's like if you went bowling and 7 out of the 10 frames of bowling you played ended in gutter balls. You wouldn't really want that to happen, even if it is a case that you're doing fairly good in all the other frames. Alright, well, local high score, I nearly cleared the whole board. Let's look at the actual online leaderboards. Just use the mouse for that. Okay. So all-time overall, we have 154 billion, which seems very high, and then you quickly jump down to 31 billion, and then before you hit 50, you're down to about 9 billion. Overall, my score, which I thought I did pretty well, puts me at 24,555, so clearly there is a lot more room for improvement, certainly as far as these scores go. And I really would like to see if there is a element here where two scores would overlap ever in these leaderboards. I kind of feel like they probably don't, and it just straight up would overwrite the old score anyways if there was a collision. Because at a certain point, if two people did have the exact same score, who gets to be top and who gets to be bottom there would probably have to be based on date. And you could certainly set up an SQL database, which is almost certainly all this is, to handle that. Weekly, playing this in the evening on Saturday, I am number 2, beaten out by someone who has done severely better than me. But I think the scoreboards have reset, considering how there's only 15 people on the leaderboard. So it may have rolled over to the new week. Which, that is a weird time, because it's about 9 p.m. on a Saturday, which would mean they reset it at about midnight London time, I would guess, would be about the right time. Monthly, playing this on the 24th day of the month, I'm 205th on the scoreboard, and I think we can fairly assume, with such a high number of high scoring players, that there is somewhere around 600 people, and I don't think I want to even bother to try and scroll all the way down here. Yeah, I'm going to assume at least 600 people have played this table this month. And that definitely makes sense to me. Alright, so let's scroll down here and put this table on the favorites list. And then, let's see. Manufacturers. No. Did not mean to click on something. Why does it think I'm clicking on Last Action Hero? Let me just use a controller instead of the mouse. The whole interface is terrible. So, sorting by manufacturers is not the right way to sort table packs. So we've seen everything up to the 2000s era, and so that means we can pretty well testify to the quality of the tables. These legacy tables cannot be purchased anymore. So you are seeing Monster Bash is in that group, Theater of Magic is in that group, Arabian Nights is in that group, Taxi, Elvira, Twilight Zone, Star Trek The Next Generation, Pinbot, Whirlwind, Junkyard's in the group, Jackpot's in the group, Safecracker, High Speed and High Speed 2 seem to be in that group. Doctor Who's in that group, Bonsai Run's in that group, and a lot of other Judge Dredd's in the group, a lot of other tables. So, like, seriously, if you were going to come and try and buy this Gottlieb Pack 1, yeah, I don't think so. I don't think you would want Big Hurt and Gladiators and Lights, Camera, Action and Haunted House. Haunted House is probably the only one there that I even think is slightly good. And it's kind of weird that, like, these three don't have pro modes, so these must have been, at least in Pinball Arcade's opinion, better tables, and they started scraping the bottom of the barrel once they started adding pro modes. Pack 2 has Black Hole, Gone Nuts, and El Dorado, which, no, I don't think I'd particularly want to buy that either. Class of 1812 is alright, and Cue Ball Wizard is alright, but then you also get one of the tables I hate the most, and Cactus Jacks and Teeth Off, which those aren't particularly great. And then Gottlieb Electromechanical Pack. I mean, if you want to play electromechanical tables, that might be a decent pack. And then Stern Pack. You might have something here between Ripley's Believe It or Not and Star Trek worth playing, but you're basically going to be paying $10 or $20 for these packs to get maybe 2 good tables. Stern Pack 2. I mean, maybe Ghostbusters is going to be better. The Alvin G pack, almost certainly no. The FarSight Studios single game, almost certainly no, because that's probably more expensive. Stern Pack 3 is just 2 games. So yeah, they really don't have a selection here where it would justify playing this game if you hadn't purchased the tables earlier. And arguably I may have made a mistake purchasing the tables earlier, since it seems like most, if not every single one of these tables, plus some other tables, have moved over to Pinball FX2 and then moved forward to Pinball FX3. Possibly they won't transfer over to the Unreal Engine when they relaunch Pinball FX. So there might be some tables lost there. So, yeah. We have 8, 16, 32, 34 tables in our favorites list. With, honestly, I could probably go through several of these and add them to the favorites list if I was more generous. And break it down into the tables I really would like to play versus tables I don't think I would ever want to play. And that would put a lot more tables in the favorites list too. Well, is there anything else to say? No, I kind of want to just hop into Scared Stiff.
I don't want to know
And just
what's in
remind
there.
myself of what the competition would have been, because this would have been a year earlier. As far as monsters, of course, Elvira. Excuse me. I'm gonna drink some water. Elvira and Scared Stiff as a table is definitely targeting an older audience.
I don't want to know what's in there.
Whereas the Monsters of Rock is targeting younger kids, I suppose. And I did just see footage of the third Elvira table, and it looks good. It's got a little toy mansion, very much like Medieval Madness, with different lights for each room that you're trying to turn on. It has an LCD screen, which it shows a lot of public domain, terrible horror movies, like Hands of Manos is one of them. And yeah, compared to this table, having better graphics and just a more complicated table is desirable for the third Elvira table. One of the things that was probably the most surprising about Elvira's third table is the fact that Elvira is still alive and looking pretty good for her age, although I do think wearing all that makeup probably slightly prematurely aged her face. But they were able to get her to still put on the makeup and the big wig and play as Elvira and do a lot of lines of dialogue, which is nice because that is going to solidify some footage of her before she inevitably passes away or gets too old, because it's highly unlikely that they would make a fourth Elvira table.
Stop the spider!
Check out my telepathetic power.
Welcome to Monkey Town.
Heading for the deadheads.
The Deadheads make a reappearance in the third Elvira table.
Let's boogie. Rock the ball.
Apparently, it's the same designer that worked on the same designers that worked on the first two Elvira tables worked on the third. So it wouldn't make a lot of sense for that third table to have been licensed, but it wasn't. So whatever.
Mother, please.
Tell me
And I guess inherently that is a problem with a dead emulator, which is pretty much what Pinball Arcade is that there are clearly more 60s tables and more 70s tables and more 80s tables and more 90s tables. There's more tables all over that they could have emulated, and they didn't because they couldn't get the license. Where if you're just using the open source software Visual Pinball, there's probably floating around there on the internet somewhere ROMs and emulated handcrafted clones of original tables all for free to download, with people not caring it any at all about licensing and copyright. It's probably a lot easier to get a more complete collection, and arguably the only thing I imagine Visual Pinball is lacking is a lot of like 50s and earlier electromechanical tables that people may have never even seen or never played, so they have no idea of how to recreate them or no interest in recreating them. Whereas a recreation of Monster Bash in Visual Pinball almost certainly is going to be close to 100% accurate, because so many people would have played Monster Bash. They would know how it works. People with actual Monster Bash tables would be able to tell them how it works and how it looks. Anyways, that's going to be it for this recording. Next time we're going to try Star Trek. We may get bored with it since that hasn't been purchased, and we'll try one of the tournaments just to see how that goes. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos. If you want a friend or follow me on any social media sites, there's a whole bunch of links down below. And if you want to support me further, there's a link to Patreon, or you can friend me on Steam and give me a game off my wishlist. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.